It's time to break down the Buffalo Bills Week 4 opponent, the challenges they present, and what the Bills need to do to deal with them today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, folks, let's get ready for it. A big one for the Bills in Week 4 on the road to face the Baltimore Ravens. The game will be played on Sunday, September 29th, 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, Maryland. The game will be broadcasted on NBC. Mike Tirico is on the play-by-play, Chris Collinsworth, the game analyst, and Melissa Stark, the sideline reporter. I know that Chris Collinsworth doesn't have a lot of fans in Bills Mafia, but I will say, if you can overlook the commentating, I think NBC's presentation of a football game is the best out there. I love the replays. I love their camera angles. I think they do a great job with the presentation of the game, even if you don't like Chris Collinsworth. This will be the 12th all-time meeting between the Bills and Ravens. The Bills have an all-time record of 5-6 against Baltimore. Sean McDermott 2-1 against the Lamar Jackson Ravens. The last meeting in 2022, the Bills won 23-20. Then it was the playoff win, 17-3 win in 2021. And then in 2019, that's the game that the Ravens beat the Bills with Lamar Jackson. That was Lamar's big MVP season, his first MVP season, and Baltimore won 24-17. The Bills enter this game 3-0. They're one of 5 teams currently at 3-0. There were 9 2-0 teams entering Week 3, and that got cut down to 5. We'll see how many remain undefeated after Week 4. The Ravens enter this game 1-2. They dropped their first game 27-20 to the Chiefs to open up the NFL season. Had a chance to win that game at the end, but I would say their offense couldn't execute over those last 3 opportunities to tie up the game. Then they lose to the Raiders in Week 2, 26-23. Lost to Vegas in Week 2. They blew a 10-point fourth quarter lead. And then last week, they beat Dallas 28-25. Had a big-time rushing output, 45 rushes, 274 yards against Dallas, and Lamar was 12 of 15 for 182 yards. I mean, they were just running the ball. It's very much like the game that the Bills beat Dallas in last year, where you just kind of snatch their soul, pounding the rock, and sprinkle in some passing, and that's what happened for them against Dallas. It was a commanding lead that they had, and Dallas kind of made it interesting late in that game. Dak Prescott, 51 passing attempts in that game. Dallas only ran it 16 times. Head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, John Harbaugh, 62 years old. This is his 17th season as the Ravens head coach. He has a record of 161 and 101 in his 16 previous seasons, right? This is his 17th season. They have 11 playoff appearances, 5 division titles, 4 AFC championship game appearances, and 3 of those 4 came in his first 5 seasons. They lost it twice before they won it on their third try, and then eventually they won the Super Bowl. So Super Bowl winning coach John Harbaugh. Quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens, you know this guy, Lamar Jackson, 27 years old, was a first-round pick in 2018, number 32 overall out of Louisville, 6'2", 205 pounds, has started 89 career games, and the Ravens are 59-21 in those starts. This season so far, he's 59 of 90. He's completing 66% of his passes. 702 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 95.7 so far through 3 games. Let's dive in a little deeper to the metrics and talk about Lamar as a player. So far this season, he has an EPA, expected points added. That's a big metric for me right now. Expected points added really kind of takes what a normal situation is, right? And that every situation that's ever happened in the history of football and what the regular outcome is, and then how much you exceed that by is where you get EPA. So it's a very good metric. It's an all-inclusive number that we're going to use a lot on this podcast. So 0.04 EPA per drop pack. That is 11th best in the NFL. He's not throwing the ball deep very often. 8.9% of throws deep. That's 20th in the NFL in terms of frequency. And on those deep throws, he's 1 of 8. 1 of 8 for 38 yards on throws, 20 yards or more down the field. Josh Allen's deep ball percentage is 11.1%. So neither quarterback with a lot of production or frequency down the field. Yards after catch, Lamar's getting that. 60% of his yards come after the catch. That's 8th in the NFL. Josh Allen, 64.2%. He's towards the very top. I think he's second or third in yards after catch per reception, yards after catch as a percentage of overall passing. First read percentage, Lamar throws to his first read 64% of the time. That's 20th in the NFL. By comparison, Josh Allen, 55.6%, dead last. Josh Allen throws to his first read fewer than any other quarterback in the NFL. Lamar's catchable ball percentage, not good. 72.2%. That's 27th. So very low in terms of accuracy so far this season. Josh Allen, 82%, 9th best in the NFL. Lamar's off-target throw percentage is 18%. That's 10th highest in the NFL. Josh Allen, 9.7%. That is 28th. Neither quarterback turning over the ball or putting the ball in harm's way. Lamar's turnover-worthy throw percentage, only 1.1%. 5th lowest in the NFL. Josh Allen, 1.4%. 6th lowest in the NFL. So big play quarterbacks that are taking care of the ball. Drops not happening for Lamar this year. I know last year was kind of an issue, but 2.2% drop rate so far. 7th lowest in the NFL. His pressure rate is middle of the pack, 34.6%. He's pressured on dropbacks. Again, middle of the pack, 15th there. And, of course, just like Josh Allen, very good at not letting pressure turn into sacks. Only 8.1% of his pressure results in a sack. That's 3rd lowest in the NFL. Josh Allen, number 1 in the league there at 5.7%. 22% of his dropbacks are play action. That's 20th in the NFL. And so, you can kind of get an idea of what the picture is here for Lamar Jackson in terms of those metrics. And if you're interested in metrics, I have a brand new Substack that I launched about a month ago where I'm writing articles, 3+ articles a week, where I am breaking down a lot of things with the Bills. And one of my weekly posts is Josh Allen Weekly, where I dive into all of his metrics, provide film, provide analysis for you to really understand how Josh Allen is playing. So that comes out every week. It actually dropped yesterday in the Substack. So if you'd like to check out the Substack, there's a link in today's show notes that you can find that and get even more content from me on the written side. Having a lot of fun there. It's really gone well. A lot of great feedback. Come see what it's all about. Link in today's show notes and every day's show notes. For Lamar Jackson, running the ball, also, of course, a big part of what he does. 35 rushes for 255 yards. That's very comfortably the most rushing yards for any quarterback in the NFL. And he's just an electric athlete, a guy that can really accelerate. He can make you miss. He can rip off chunks of yardage. Very, very talented runner with the football. And then I think one of the big talking points that we have to talk about with Lamar as it relates to his matchup against the Bills defense is where Lamar Jackson likes to throw the football. He throws it short to intermediate, and he throws it to the middle of the field. That's where he wants to throw the ball. And he's having a lot of success. Right now on throws that are 10 to 19 air yards, he's got a passer rating of 153.9. He's doing well in that area. So the deep stuff's not really there, but that intermediate range is outstanding. And then he's got a perfect 158.3 passer rating between the numbers with a depth of target 10 to 19 yards. So that middle of the field, intermediate range, that's where Lamar likes to throw the ball, and he's doing it extremely well. And so for this Bills defense that has been terrific with the new safety tandem, with the injuries on the second level to Taron Johnson, Terrel Bernard, Matt Milano, they're going to be tested in some new ways in this contest just based on where Baltimore likes to throw the ball, where Lamar likes to throw the ball. And we'll talk more about this in the next segment, but the Bills have played the third lowest percentage of one high middle of the field closed coverage, 36% of the time. And so structurally, are they going to play defense differently against this team to kind of protect where you would perceive they have some weaknesses? The Bills would love for teams to throw the ball and challenge Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas, right? That's a dream. But that's not really where Lamar throws the ball. So will you invite those throws to the middle of the field with how you've structurally played defense so far this year, or are you going to switch it up? We'll find out. Whatever they do, they better be right. So we'll talk more about that here on the other side of it as we break down more of this Ravens offense and talk about the keys for the Bills defense on Sunday night. Folks, be sure to stick with me. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million users, folks. You got to check this out. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Here's what you do. You pick 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you pick more or less on their numbers, and you watch the winnings roll in. It's the only real daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy, so that way your lineups stay in play even if one of your guys gets hurt. PrizePicks also puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, let's talk more about this Ravens offense that is coordinated by Todd Monken, 48 years old, second season in Baltimore. Previously, he was the Georgia Bulldogs in college. He was their offensive coordinator 2020 through 2022. He was with the Browns as their OC in 2019. And then previously to that, he was with Tampa Bay as their offensive coordinator for a couple of seasons. Let's get into some of the metrics here with this Ravens offense. They're 11th so far in scoring at 23.6 points per game. They pass the ball 47% of the time, which is 26. So not a high volume passing offense. They want to run the ball, which they do 53% of the time. They're 4th in EPA per play on offense, 10th in EPA per pass, 2nd in EPA per rush. They can run the ball. They get stuffed on run plays only 9.6% of times. That's 4th lowest in the NFL. And the good news is the Bills are actually pretty good at stuffing runs. 21.6% stuff rate. That's 4th highest. So that'll be interesting to see how that contrasts. The Ravens getting a ton of push in the run game. 3.12 adjusted yards before contact. They're one of 3 teams that are above 3 yards adjusted yards before contact. And adjusted yards before contact measures how much yardage the ball carrier gets before they're contacted. And what I love about adjusted yards before contact from the Fantasy Points data suite is it removes trick plays scrambles, quarterback kneels, and sneaks. So it's a very pure metric. To give you an idea, the Bills are also very good at yards before contact. They're fifth best at 2.21, but you could see kind of the gap there where Baltimore is third at 3.12, the Bills fifth at 2.21. So both are excellent. The Ravens are very excellent, if you will. They are 41% converting third downs. That's 11th in the NFL. They're 60% scoring touchdowns in the red zone, and that is 10th in the NFL. So some good metrics for this Ravens offense. And again, they present some very unique challenges for the Bills on defense. Their personnel, their wide receivers, they pretty much throw the ball to three guys in terms of wide receivers. Zay Flowers, their most targeted player. He has 22 targets through 3 games. Rashad Bateman, 13 targets. Nelson Aguilar, 5 targets. So Zay Flowers is lightning in a bottle, right? You can throw it to him down the field, and he can separate and win down the field. He's also very good at creating yards after the catch. Very jittery, explosive type player. There's a suddenness, there's an acceleration, there's a twitch with him that makes him, tough to deal with. Rashad Bateman, bigger bodied, cerebral route runner, possession style player, but don't sleep on his athleticism. He's got good juice. He's open a lot. Just really, for whatever reason, Lamar and him just haven't really consistently got on the same page. So I'm curious to see how that relationship evolves this season. And then Nelson Aguilar, who's kind of been a deep ball specialist throughout his career, veteran player that never quite met the hype of being a first-round pick many years ago, but provides a field stretcher for Baltimore. Only 5 targets, though, through 3 games. Tight ends, that's a big part of what they do. Mark Andrews, seemingly one of the best tight ends in the NFL, hasn't really gotten it going. Only 8 targets through 3 games, 6 catches, not quite meeting expectations at this point, but certainly, over the last several years, one of the best tight ends in the game. They got a good-looking young tight end in Isaiah Likely. Has 16 targets so far this year, and he's got really dynamic receiving skill. Can get open, really good ball skills, outstanding with the ball in his hands after the catch. So they got a couple of different tight ends you got to deal with. And they also play a third tight end in Charlie Kolar, who is one of those, hey, just looks the part, can block a little bit, can catch a little bit, your ideal type third tight end. Running back Derrick Henry, you know about this guy, right? He's been, one of the premier offensive playmakers in the NFL for a while now. It's his first season in Baltimore, and it's going well. He's backed up by Justice Hill, who's the opposite of Derrick Henry. Not a big body dude, but super explosive, has 4.3 speed. He's been in Baltimore for a while, and it just feels like over the last year or so, they've really kind of figured out how to get him going. Provides a pass catcher and, a change of pace type running back with a lot of speed. I mean, low 4.3 speed, pretty explosive guy. He's got 10 targets so far this year, and he also has 10 rushes. So 20 touches in 2 games. And, his production is very good per touch. But Derrick Henry's the story here. 56 rushes, 281 yards, 4 touchdowns so far in 3 games, 3.55 yards after contact. He's a load, right? He's a big physical guy that has surprising speed for, his stature. And so just a really tough tandem of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry as backfield mates with what they can do with zone read. Just a lot of creativity they can do with their rushing offense with a bruiser like Derrick Henry and just an electric athlete in Lamar Jackson, who, they both have over 250 rushing yards in 3 games. So very, very productive pair to this point, and it'll be a big task for the Bills. The Ravens offensive line has not been great so far this year. Their left tackle is Ronnie Stanley, who's been one of the better left tackles in the game. The last few years have been injuries that have kind of derailed him. I don't know that he's the elite level player he was earlier in his career, but I think he's probably still an above average starting left tackle. Their left guard, this could be a dicey situation. Andrew Voorhees is their preferred starter, and he is a second-year player that missed his entire rookie season with injury. Physical run blocker, not necessarily, I think, a polished pass protector, but he's not practiced so far this week. We'll see what his status is for Sunday. They'll have to potentially lean into some depth options there if Voorhees can't go. Their center is Tyler Linderbaum, one of the best young centers in the entire NFL. I think he'll be a fixture for this team for a long time. Very athletic. Not the biggest guy, but he's plenty powerful. Really good player. Their right guard is Daniel Falele, one of the biggest offensive linemen in the league, like 380 pounds, just an absolute massive dude. So he can move bodies, and he's tough to play through, but, you can get to his edges and create some problems. And the right tackle is Patrick McCarry, who's been kind of a super sub offensive lineman for them for the last several years. And they started off kind of rotating him in with a second-round pick Roger Rosengarten at right tackle, and Rosengarten was a disaster. So McCarry has kind of stepped over to be the full-time right tackle. So that's the offensive line. I think your weak links here are the left guard, the right guard, and I think you could have some chances against McCarry, who's probably been better as a reserve than he is a full-time player. And then we'll see what happens with Voorhees and if they have to lean into some depth. So what are my keys for the Bills on defense against this offense? Number one is, what is your plan to stop the run? Obviously, Baltimore can run the ball very well. They just came off of a huge night against Dallas, and so I'm sure they're going to come in and want to do that to Buffalo. And the Bills in their run defense plan is very fascinating. They're so willing to try and fit the run with light boxes and two high safeties. And at times that works, right? When teams are kind of not patient, they don't stick with it. They kind of search for some more production throwing the ball, and they kind of fall into this trap that the Bills put them in. I don't know if Baltimore's going to do that. I think this is a team that's very committed to running the football. And so the thing about the Bills is that they have not played a single snap this year with more than two linebackers on the field. Like, if you want the Bills to play 4-3 defense, they just haven't shown their willingness to do that this year. They're 79% nickel, which is 5 DBs. They're 21% dime, which is 6 DBs. Well, I mean, this is Baltimore. It's Derrick Henry, big, massive offensive lineman. They play multiple tight ends. They love to get their fullback involved, Patrick Ricard. So just a really unique run scheme that I think conventional wisdom would say, well, play big people, play multiple linebackers. Well, the Bills don't do that. And not only do they not do that, the guys that would be the third and fourth linebacker are the 1 and 2, right? And Dorian Williams and Balen Spector. So you're going to bring in Nicholas Moreau to be that type player. I've seen some people say something about putting Cole Bishop in that role. I don't feel like that's a very good idea. Cole Bishop is a young player. And so why would you ask him to play a unique box role in his first extended action in the NFL against a unique opponent? Like, that's like what the Bills tried to do with Taylor Rapp in week 1 against the Jets last year. Was a disaster. I just don't feel like that's putting Cole Bishop in a spot to be successful. Maybe the Bills will do that and it'll be awesome. We'll see. So we'll see. I mean, I'm just very fascinated because on paper, structurally, this looks like a problem for the Bills. We'll see. Again, against Miami, similar type story. The Bills gave them light boxes, 2 high safeties, invited the run, and the game script got away from Miami, partly to their own lack of willingness to stick to the run. But I don't think Baltimore's going to fall into that. I think Baltimore would be happy to run the ball 40 times if that's what it takes in this game. And I think with a team like with Miami, you're more concerned about their down the field passing game. So you're probably more willing to concede those rushing yards. Against Baltimore, you're not as concerned about their ability to throw the ball down the field, and you're more concerned with the rushing yards. And so I don't know. I think Bobby Babich has a tough riddle to solve here, and I'm fascinated to see what he comes up with. So far, he's been right. So keep it up. Number 2, I have written down middle of the field closed, question mark. We talked about this. Lamar throws the ball intermediate, middle of the field, and he should. He's faced the 5th lowest amount of 1 high middle of the field closed coverage so far this year. It's just what the defense is giving him. And the Bills have played the 3rd lowest amount of middle of the field 1 high closed coverage. So I don't know. You got an interesting contrast here. Are you going to live in a world where you stress your safeties and linebackers that are new and, not quite what they've been in the past? Or are you going to have middle of the field open coverage and live with those results? I don't know. I think, again, structurally, the Bills may have to play this game differently, not just against the pass, but against the run. And so are you willing to kind of roll down that safety and peel back into some deeper alignments if necessary? Again, tough riddle to solve here for Bobby Babich. And then number 3, you got to cage rush Lamar. Disciplined pass rush. You can't go inside if you're a defensive end. If you're the contained player, you have to really just close that pocket around him and not allow him to get outside of structure, because not only can he beat you as a runner, he can beat you as a thrower. And so keeping him in that pocket is where you want Lamar Jackson. And you cannot be undisciplined with how you rush the passer, really inside or outside. You gotta be in your rush lane, and you got to cage rush, and you got to be very careful not to be too aggressive to sell out and get him, because he will kill you. So unique opponent, new challenges for this Bills defense. And to the Bills' credit, I think they've done as good of a job against Lamar Jackson as any team in the league. I think they've done as good of a job against Derrick Henry as any team in the league. Well, now they're together. So we'll see what Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich can cook up. All right, folks, coming up on the other side of it, let's talk about this Baltimore defense and what the Bills offense can do against them. Be sure to stick with me. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Bills offense against this Ravens defense. Ravens defense is coordinated by Zach Orr. He's young, 32 years old. First season as the Ravens defensive coordinator and as an NFL defensive coordinator. This Ravens defensive staff was gutted over the offseason. Mike McDonald, their outstanding defensive coordinator, was hired to be the head coach in Seattle. Then Anthony Weaver, who was their assistant head coach and I think defensive line coach, is now the DC in Miami. Denard Wilson, who's a key assistant for them, is now the defensive coordinator in Tennessee. So they lose 3 coaches to be head coaches or defensive coordinator off that defense last year. So they're transitioning a lot of that staff, and Zach Orr promoted to be their new coordinator. So far this season, they're giving up 26 points per game. That's 24th most in the NFL. 20th in EPA per play overall. 23rd in EPA per pass. 6th in EPA per rush. They are very good in terms of run defense. 2.8 rush yards per play. That's best in the NFL. They've given up the fewest rushing yards in the NFL. Now, there's a volume component here. They've only faced 29% of their defensive snaps have been run plays. So very, very low frequency. I think 53 run plays in 3 games. They faced the Chiefs, Ravens, and Cowboys. Well, the Chiefs don't want to run the ball. The Raiders can't run the ball, and neither can the Cowboys. So I think they have good personnel. I think they're a good run defense, but I do think that there's something to be said for the opponents that they face and just a low volume of rushing attempts against their defense. But again, the metrics are good. Fewest yards per rush in the NFL allowed. They allow 0.91 yards before contact. That's 3rd best in the NFL. Now, the Bills are 3rd best in yards before contact in the NFL running the ball. But they're also getting a lot of yards after contact, 2.09 yards after contact. That is the best in the league comfortably in terms of, not allowing yards after contact on defense. So some interesting contrasts here in how these teams metrically line up in terms of where they've been productive and, how they can stress each other. A couple other metrics here. The Ravens on 3rd down, they're giving up a first down 44% of the time. That's 25th in the NFL, not very good. And they're 60% allowing touchdowns in the red zone, which is 11th in the NFL. So the Bills so far this year on offense have been really adaptable, and I'm excited for this challenge. Now, the Ravens on defense run too high, middle of the field open, 53% of the time. That's 6th most in the NFL. They run 1 high, middle of the field close 47% of the time, which is 27th in the NFL. So this is going to be a lot different than Jacksonville. Again, they're going to play those 2 high safety shells against Buffalo. They're not going to play structurally like Jacksonville did. So the Bills will have to have a different strategy for how to beat this defense. Baltimore also doesn't blitz very often. They're 23% blitz rate. That's 24th in the NFL. And the Bills, by comparison, are not blitzing at all. The lowest blitz rate in the NFL at 13%. Let's talk about the Ravens' defensive personnel. They got some really good players. Their defensive lineman, Nnamdi Madubuike, man, he had a breakout season last year, got a huge contract. He's been pretty quiet so far this year, but certainly he showed us the type of playmaking ability he has as a run defender and a pass rusher, like big-time sack production last year. Their nose tackles are Travis Jones and Michael Pierce. Travis Jones, big, massive dude with a lot of athleticism. If you remember when he was coming out of UConn, I really wanted the Bills to draft him, and he's been awesome for Baltimore. Michael Pierce, massive dude, one of the best run stuffers in the NFL. And then Broderick Washington's very good player that fits this odd front defense, can play the 5, can play inside, 2-gapper, long arms, heavy hands, good young player that they pay, like $5 million a year to be a depth player for them. So good group of down linemen. And their edge rushers are interesting. Odafe Owe, first-round pick a few years ago, explosive athlete. I think he's quietly become a very good edge rusher. Has he become Myles Garrett? No. But I think he's been a very impactful pass rusher that brings a lot of speed off the edge. David Ajabo, still working back from injury, but I think his flashes have been more and more encouraging. Was a potential first-round pick a few years ago out of Michigan. Had an unfortunate late-season injury and, kind of took him some time to get back, but he's back, and I think he's starting to flash, and he's playing a fair amount of snaps for that defense. Then they've got a steady vet in Kyle Van Noy. The Bills have faced him a ton. Very good fit for a hybrid-type defense. Good edge setter. Can kind of do everything at a reasonable level and an experienced player. And then Tavius Robinson, a young rotational piece. But really the edge trio of Odafe Owe, David Ajabo, Kyle Van Noy, their primary options. Linebackers, Roquan Smith, their Mike linebacker, one of the best 2 or 3 backers in the game, can run, can cover, very good player. He's got a new running mate this year. It's been Patrick Queen. Now it's Trenton Simpson, a player they drafted 2 years ago to kind of be the successor to Patrick Queen. And he's athletic. I'll give him that. I think he's still a work in process for how he sees the field and is assignment driven with his consistency. Kind of some parallels to Dorian Williams, but I don't think he's nearly as physical of a player as Dorian Williams. So that could be an opportunity to attack him. At corner, they do some interesting things. Brandon Stevens, pretty good young player that's developed well for them. And Marlon Humphrey, who's been one of the better corners in the NFL. Humphrey's been a guy that they'll play in the slot and they'll play outside. And they will do that. But how they get there is fascinating. They will sometimes play a different outside corner to put him down inside. And that could be Nate Wiggins, who's their first-round pick. There's been times like against Dallas where they kept him, inside, outside, but sometimes our Darius Washington, this kind of a slot safety type player will come in. They'll play a lot of 3 safeties. They're very willing to play different people with their corners and safeties and play some matchups. So you got to be ready for a variety of looks and personnel groupings with the back 7. They do play a lot of 3 safety stuff. You'll see Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton on the field probably every snap. Marcus Williams has been one of the best deep ball center fielders in the league, not having his best season so far, but he's been a better player than what he's shown to this point. Kyle Hamilton really emerged last season, first-round pick, has a lot of size, physical, really good tackler. They can play matchups with him. They can play him down in the box, and very versatile chess piece that showed a lot of playmaking ability last year. Again, I think he's been a little bit of a slow start to the year for him. And then Eddie Jackson's kind of their new Geno Stone player. If you remember Geno Stone, he winds up having a good year. I think he had like 7 or 8 interceptions, and he took a free agent contract to go elsewhere. And Eddie Jackson, who's been a veteran, came over to be their third safety. And look, Eddie Jackson's not quite the splash player he was earlier in his career, but still a veteran player that I think you can get after a little bit, but also has some know-how about him given his experience in the league. So interesting set of players here with this personnel, with a lot of new coaching. What are my keys for the Bills on offense against this defense? Number 1, throw it. Throw the ball, man. This is one of the games where I think you want to be pass aggressive, The Ravens have been giving up a lot of passing yards. They've given up the most passing plays of 20 yards or more. They've given up a lot of yards after catch. Attack this secondary. Make them show that they can communicate and play together. And some new pieces, some new coaching, and you're this multiple offense. Like, stress them out with throwing the ball. Then number 2 is use your multiplicity. Like, if you want to, you have so many different matchups that you can create with your different weapons, and it's not about any one guy. This is the type of game where I think you want to showcase that in its fullness. Distribute the football, and if they want to play matchups right with them. I think that's what's exciting about how the Bills offense is constructed. You have a great opportunity to throw the ball and stress the overall newness of what they have with your versatility and multiplicity with your passing offense. And then number 3, I think this is a big challenge for this Bills interior offensive line. Like I said, really good interior rushers in Matt Abweek, good player in Travis Jones, Broderick Washington, Michael Pierce. Those are horses, right? Those are good players. And I think the Bills' interior offensive line played its best game last week against Jacksonville. They'll need to keep that momentum going into this game against Baltimore. Special teams real quick. Justin Tucker is their kicker. Has historically been one of the best kickers in the NFL. Not off to a great start this year. He's 5 of 8. 2 misses from beyond 50, and then he missed, I think it was somewhere in the 40s against Dallas last week, if I'm not mistaken. They're also willing to invite some kick returns. 6 of 16 kickoffs have been returned, 37.5%. That's 9th highest in the NFL. And they're giving up 29 yards per return. That's 4th highest in the NFL. So it could be some kick return opportunities against Baltimore. Their punter is Jordan Stout, one of the best young punters in the game, was a 4th-round pick in 2022. He's excellent. And their kick returner and punt returner is a guy Deontay Hardy, who filled that role for Buffalo last year. So the Bills will have to deal with him. So there you have it. That's the Ravens. Tough matchup here, particularly for the Bills on defense. And I think they're going to have some things to figure out structurally and see if it works and be ready to adapt if it doesn't. And then offensively, the Bills want to run the ball. I don't know if this is the game where you want to bang your head against a wall. I think you're going to want to throw the ball and kind of soften them up and do things to set up your run game as opposed to set up your pass game, if that makes sense. So we'll see how the Bills adapt. We'll see how they do. Interesting game. That's what I'll say. Interesting matchup. I have confidence in the Bills, but there's definitely some newness about this matchup that has me very curious to see how the Bills choose to play this game. All right, folks, that's it for today here on the podcast. We got another episode coming for you. My final thoughts, injury update with Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills, which will be interesting to talk about some of the progress with Terrel Bernard and what he's been able to show this week in practice in a limited capacity. And then, of course, my 5 predictions for Sunday Night Football. Don't miss it. Hope that you come back. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.